You know what they say, that good leaders create followers, great leaders create leaders. Mustafa creates leaders. Give him a massive round. So look, sometimes timing is everything. Far too many years ago, my parents left Gambia with their 3 children to go to London. At a time before independence, at a time of dependence. This is a very different time. I've been coming back here for years and years and years, and unfortunately I lost my father and then lost my mother. And Gambia was a place that maybe had lost its welcome, had lost its mojo, has lost its confidence. I flew in 2 nights ago, not knowing what to expect. Something incredible has changed. There's something in the air that us returning Gambians perhaps feel more than you may feel. There's the hope, the dreams, the opportunity. But it's not faced without challenge. And I've written a book which was written with Gambia in mind. And the most distinguished guests are you, sitting here in this audience. It's not us on the stage that would change Gambia. It's you sitting here. And for my brother, Carayol, who had some fears, I have some hopes. I have some real hopes. And I can see the beginning of these hopes now clearly. We can go beyond ethnicity. We can go beyond gender. We can go beyond religion. Leadership doesn't know religion. Leadership doesn't know gender. Leadership doesn't know nothing but talent. So I've written a book with you in mind. Forget what we're not good at. Forget our limitations. Let's focus on our strengths. Every single person in this auditorium has been given a gift of something they are outstanding at. Yet society, education, business, organisations at large, we tend to get us all to focus on the things we're not so good at. I've spent the last 20 years advising leaders right across the world. I don't normally mention this, but I'm amongst friends so I can be discreet. I've had the opportunity to work with presidents, prime ministers, heads of state, the biggest businesses you can imagine. From President Clinton to Prime Minister Tony Blair. From President Mandela to Richard Branson. To President Mahana to President Festus Mogae in Botswana. As I stand here today, I'm advising the President of the World Bank over in Washington, D.C., the President of African Development Bank in Abidjan, Ivory Coast, more business leaders than I could name, more heads of states than I could name. Thank you. And you know what? I'm a humble Gambian. There are no more boundaries. There are no more limitations. There was a time when we could say that we lack talent. That is not the case today. But you know what? The future won't come from us of my generation. The future will be delivered by a completely different generation. And I want you to, tomorrow we'll go into this in detail, but today I'm going to leave you with a couple of thoughts. The only mistake is the one you don't learn from. Every single person in this room has a fantastic standout spike. It's not what you're good at, it's what you're great at. I've had the opportunity to work with some of the best leaders on the planet. I've yet to meet one that's an all-rounder. I've yet to meet one that's flawless. But at the very top of the game, and I mean the top, they have the humility to know what they're brilliant at, but they also know what they're not so good at. There was a time when we'd advise them to work on the things you're not so good at. That is not the time of today. What they're fantastic at is surrounding themselves with people who compensate for the things they're not so good at. There was a time when the boss could answer every question, had every initiative, had every idea. Those days are long gone. The world is moving too fast, it's too complex, and the markets are too unforgiving. Nothing is best done alone anymore. We are all stronger together. But we need the humility to know what we're not so good at. Don't spend your time trying to gain a 1% advantage of something you're only ever going to be mediocre at. Invest in what you're brilliant at. This is the future. And I make this plea to all of us, to our Honourable President, to our Vice President, all of us. The boss doesn't have the answers every day anymore. The team does. It's no longer possible for one person to know everything. It's extremely possible for the team to have it. I spend my time across Africa working with the most outstanding of leaders who have the humility to know that it's not just about them, it's who they surround themselves with. And there's a new way of thinking and a new way of doing it. It is beyond gender, it is beyond ethnicity, it is beyond religion. And I plead to all of us, this is our moment. This may not come again. This is our moment. And I feel confident, optimistic, that we can grasp this. Let me say it again. Having come back and forth for far too many years, I arrived 2 days ago and something is happening. Something incredible is happening. It's intangible. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but I can tell you how it makes me feel. And let's just quote Maya Angelou before I leave you. Not everyone remembers exactly what you've said. Everyone remembers how you made them feel. Ladies and gentlemen, this is leadership. This is leadership. So I'll leave you with a little story. Managers talk strategy, leaders tell stories. Our heritage are stories. So I want to take you back. I've performed all over the world. I've been privileged to perform everywhere in the world. I even had the privilege to meet the Queen at Buckingham Palace to be presented with an MBE. And who would have thought, born in Banjul far too many years ago, I'll be having this private audience with the Queen. It's very kind of you, thank you. But I want to take you back to Barcelona, one of my favorite cities. I'm opening a leadership conference, and I'm the host, the MC, and I'm leading this leadership conference. And I'm going back to my basic Spanish, and I'm thinking, what words am I going to use to open up this conference in Barcelona? So I step outside the hotel, I'm standing outside, I'm wearing my normal attire, a dark suit and a white shirt, and I'm taking in the scent of España and trying to get my little Spanish together, and I'm just working on how am I going to open it, when up pulls a brand new Rolls Royce. Out steps the chauffeur in his grey uniform and his peaked cap. He opens the back door and out steps the most gorgeous, beautiful, middle-aged Iberian woman. She is classically and beautifully dressed. The hair is perfect, the clothing is haute couture, the jewelry is fabulous, and she has the most expensive fur coat draped over her shoulders that you can ever imagine. The chauffeur stands behind her, takes off the fur coat, lays it on her arm, he gets back in the car and he drives off. She comes up to me and she says, "Excuse me, sir, do you know where the leadership conference is today?" I said, "Of course, madam. It's in the hall downstairs." She places her fur coat over my arm and walks downstairs. You know how that feels, you've been there before. I was speechless. España disappeared from my mind. And then I hear on the tannoy, "Please welcome your host for today, Mr. René Carayol." I run downstairs, I jump on the stage, and I do the "Buenos dias, welcome to Barcelona," with a fur coat over my arm. Now, as you can imagine, I say to the audience, would you believe the owner of this fur coat is sitting here in the auditorium, and I'm sure she would love to come up and collect her fur coat. Nobody moves. We turn on the house lights, and it's the longest walk in the world. Sometimes wrong assumptions are our greatest learning opportunity. She steps up, I give her the fur coat. She's more embarrassed than you could imagine. I've been back to Barcelona 3 or 4 times, and every time I go, I meet with her and her husband, and guess what's the first thing we talk about? The fur coat. So here's the lesson I'll leave you with. First impressions. First impressions. When we see someone for the first time, let's pause. Let's look beyond what we see. Let's look for the talent. Is she female? Irrelevant. She Muslim, Christian? Irrelevant. What tribe she's from? Sere, Fula? Irrelevant. I leave you with talent has no boundaries. This is our moment. Tomorrow, every one of you will get the opportunity to have a copy of Spike, my latest book. I hope it encourages you, it inspires our children to reach for the sky. There are no limits anymore. Remember, we are stronger together. Nyoko Boka. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.